Hey everybody, it's Innocent here, and in this video I'm going to show you 5 tips and tricks that no one is talking about, especially when you're a beginner. And this is coming up. Hello everybody and welcome to the channel once again. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, please hit on the subscribe button. If you're old here, thank you so much for showing up again. So yeah, let's jump into Photoshop. 5 tips and tricks that no one probably will talk about, especially when you're a beginner. Number 1 on my list is choosing the color mode. When you go to file and then new, and then you want to create a new document, most of the times what people don't realize is the color mode. Most of the times you talk about the resolution and setting up the size, but we forget to talk about the color mode right over here. Now when you're a beginner and someone takes your machine and set this to grayscale, because the person wants to work in grayscale, you'll be shocked enough to know that after you close your Photoshop and open it again, it will still be in the grayscale mode. Now the grayscale mode will imply that everything that you bring into Photoshop, being it colored or a picture or text, whether it has a color or not, it is going to be in the grayscale mode. Now everything that you're going to do in this particular file or this particular project that you've opened in Photoshop is going to remain black. How do you resolve this? It is very simple. Once you have a situation like this, you can either set it up at the very beginning of creating your particular project. That is, you set the color mode to either RGB or CMYK to have the colors popping. Now, if you have a bunch of layers already that you can't recreate or start everything again, what you have to do is go to image mode, and then over here you go to RGB or CMYK if you want the colors to pop up. So you choose RGB over here. The first thing that comes is rasterize or not. Don't rasterize, don't flatten, and then boom, everything changes back to the color that you have. So every color thing that you're going to work on again in this document in Photoshop, the colors will be right there for you. The next tip is from this subscriber's comments. Another thing is I can only type in caps, whether the caps lock is off or I click on small caps on the text. I don't know why. Could it be from my version of Photoshop? Now you have to understand that some fonts like Bebas comes with no caps lock. So for instance, if I choose Bebas right over here and then I type anything like this, whatever that I'm going to type like text is going to be in the caps lock. Whether I typed it in the smaller keys or upper keys, it is going to be just like this. It doesn't have anything like smaller or lower keys. The moment I select all of this one and I'm going to change this font type to a font called Poppins, you'd realize that if I switch the caps lock back off and then I type text, it is going to give me the lower case right over here. So what would happen then to have all your text in caps lock, even though you have a font like Poppins which is supposed to have the lower case? Now the tip is you go to the toggle character over here, and then at this point you would realize that you have additional text options. Like for instance, I don't have this one in the italic version, but whenever I choose this particular Fox italic, it is going to turn this one to italics. So whether or not you have your font type to be in italics, whenever you choose this one, it is going to be in italics for you. So what will cause you to have all text in caps is when you choose this additional font type like all caps. So when you choose this one, everything that you're going to type will be in the caps lock, whether you have it in the lowercase or the uppercase. So what then do you have to do? Anytime you pick or you get your machine back from any other person, or you are working on a different particular project, you have to check your toggle character and you make sure that everything over here is set to the normal. When nothing is ticked at all, it means that when you type in caps, you have it in caps. When you text in lowercase, you're going to have it in lowercase. Of course, it is not just all about caps and then the lowercase. There are some more cool stuff that you can do with this additional font or typefaces. That is, if you choose something like, or you test something like H2O, let me know in the comment section what H2O stands for, and then you can select these two right over here. You come and you pick this one right over here, the subscript, and then you can turn this one right into that for you. Isn't this amazing? So basically you can have all these things in Photoshop, or better still, when you want to write your math equation in Photoshop like x squared. Now you type x2 and then you can select this one and you choose the superscript, and then boom, you have your s squared in Photoshop. So basically you can do a lot of things with a toggle character and additional type options that you have in Photoshop. At tip number 3, let's talk about the color picker in Photoshop. I believe this is going to look very unfamiliar to most of us newbies in Photoshop. That is because you are almost always presented with the RGB color mode, and this is going to be the color mode that you have by default in Photoshop. But what happens when these colors are checked or these colors are selected? For example, the HSB here stands for the hue saturation, and then the brightness, and I believe you already know this, the red, green, and then the blue. Every symbol right over here will give you a different set of color palette that you can choose from, and the basic one is you can choose from this one, the RGB mode. But then what happens when this one is changed? When the alphabet is changed, it gives you a different set of color palette. That means at every point, at every compositioning, at everything that you're doing, you can choose to have a different color set or a different set of color palette. You don't necessarily need to always stick to the RGB mode over here. So you always have to take note what particular alphabet you are in as far as this color picker is concerned. I tell you, this particular color picker can give you stress, especially when you want to choose something like deep red and then you can't find it. So take note of this particular alphabet within the color picker. It can save you a lot of time. Tip number 4 would have to do with when you want to make selections. So for instance, when I choose my lasso tool over here and I want to make a selection, a rough selection around this area, once I'm done with it, I can only have access to this area, and everything that I'm going to apply to this particular layer is going to affect this selected area. Now, this also happens too when I want to choose the polygonal lasso tool, which most beginners use in getting out or getting rid of the background of images. So for instance, if I start over here, I want to go around the whole of the image. Excuse my cutting, I just want to rush this one quickly. So I want to go around this image, and let's say for instance that I get to this point. Let's take it for instance that I get to this particular point and I make my selection. Can I just make another quick selection again? Of course you can. For instance, if you still have your polygonal lasso tool and you hold shift, you see that there will be this plus sign attached to the polygonal lasso tool, and that means that you can continue your selection right from here and make different selections at different points without it having to interrupt or cause any harm. So you can continue your selection like this, and then once you're done, you can come back to where you started like that, and then you have those two selections at the same time. Now everything that you're going to apply to this particular image, for instance, if you want to take the background off, it is going to take off the backgrounds of the two sizes or the two parts or the two selections that you've just made. So you don't need to really start all over again when you make a mistake in selection or making a selection. In one of the tips and tricks videos that I did, I talked to you about how to quickly recover or how to fix the wrong selection that you made. You can check this video up in the YouTube card up there. And that brings us to the last tip for today, which is going to be a very simple and pretty short one. So sometimes you choose a particular tool like the polygonal lasso tool, and then you realize that you are having this particular sign. Take a second to check this sign out, and then you can realize that whenever you want to start working with it, it is still working out. So why is it that you're not having or you're not seeing the particular tool that you've picked? Now the answer is very short and very simple and very brief. It is as a result of having your caps lock on. Whenever you have your caps lock on, any tool that you're going to pick, for instance, you pick the brush tool. For instance, I currently have my brush size, you can see everything, but the moment I have my caps lock on, it turns to this particular symbol or sign, and that means that you can't see the actual size of the brush that you're working with. So whenever you're having this particular sign, whenever in Photoshop, whenever you choose a tool, make sure that you check your caps lock, because your caps lock will be on. And yes, that brings us to the end of this video. 5 tips and tricks that no one is talking about, and of course this time around someone has talked about it. Let me know in the comment section which of these tips you already knew, or which of them you just got to know, and which tips you would want others to know as well. I can cover it up in the next sections of this particular tips and tricks video. Don't forget to check out other tips and tricks video that I've made already. I'll put a link in the card up there and then a link in the description as well. Don't forget to also like and subscribe to this channel. Comment as well because it helps in boosting this channel up. Thank you so much for sticking around to watch this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and then I'll see you guys in the next one. It's Innocent here, and bye.